what's going on? Yes, here with another Plan Explained. Today, just getting in some 100 NL, and down here I have some 50 NL because these are the only stakes running right now actually on Global Poker. So it's pretty early in the morning. I just wanted to play a bit before I head off to work. So let's get into it. Here, King 9-7, so I'd play small bet, and then you could play a big bet as well. Here, this hand can go either way. I have no reads on this player. I think I might like putting this into a small bet. Yeah. And here, going to be 3-betting. I think you'd play very few big bets, BVB. Different than button versus big blind for sure. Going to 3-bet here again. And then, again, can go either way. I think I prefer check. Gonna open the pocket eights here. 10-9-5, rainbow. This is going to be a high frequency bet for me. So 11.5. And then you can't get called by worse here, of course. I'm going to check this one back. And then here, I'm considering whether or not to bluff. I think in the check line, he's going to have some more 7x, he's going to have some pocket pairs, he's going to have some ace high. So checking feels fine to me. And then we will go check. Yeah, well, unfortunately, like we could have gotten that hand to fold, but my hand felt very close. It felt like it had, a bit of showdown. I'll check this back as well. Yeah, I certainly have a lot of ace-x in this line. We'll show our hand down. We win versus a7. So king 8-5 two-tone. We open the cutoff. Big blind defense. This hand, this is not a board out range bet, and this hand definitely is happy to check. Showdown. Definitely playing, feels like I'm playing passively this morning, but I think a large part of that is just the hand class that I'm having in a lot of these spots. So B75 here seems like effective. I would usually use somewhere between B75 and then B125. So a little bit tailored to like my exact hand strength, I guess, but not that crazy to use that size exclusively. And then 9-7 suited, I will play as a call. Queen Jack 7 rainbow. I like betting this hand small. This is a board I'd pretty much range bet. And then facing check, I can bet small or medium or check. I think I like betting small. Basically, like when you bet small, they're supposed to check raise to this humongous size on these types of textures. But I don't anticipate that happening all that often. So, or I don't anticipate getting check raised all that often at all. So if you're betting small and just squeezing out value of your hand is much higher. Yeah, you guys let me know what sizes you prefer in any of those spots. I'll make sure, you know, I think what I'll do in this video is similar to the last video. I will analyze some of these hands from like an MDA and theory per point of view, like perspective. And we'll see how big some of these, oh, jeez, that was my alarm. We'll see how big some of these mistakes are. Full disclosure, right, this is a 50 NL table, so it's likely I'm playing pre-flop poorly for the stakes that I'm playing. 8 deuce suited is like one of the few hands that I have to, one of the few suited hands you have to fold BVB. And then queen 7 is going into the muck. I guess we could look up some of those BVB hands. Those are actually pretty interesting. I know a bit about them, and then so you get the 9-5 deuce rainbow board here. Your position with 9-7 of spades. There are a few others too. Yeah, I'm trying to think about the pocket 8s hand here. All right, here we will raise to 11 big blinds with the goods. Queen 4-3. I don't know if I would want to do a ton of betting if, you know, I think this hand I'd prefer to bet generally, mainly because I don't anticipate when I check my opponent will bluff me all that often. And here I'm going to use the B75. So then we go 22. And we're going to go all in on pretty much any river. And that's as good of a river as any. So he's going to have, he needs to have some queens here, and then he also needs to have some pocket 9s. So, yeah. And here versus 2 big blinds, I prefer to 3-bet. We got called and win a stack. So, pretty nice. Must have had jacks or something. That spot didn't strike me as like one where people would be folding too often. So we can do this big blind, 3-bet pot, hero, ace of clubs, 8 of hearts. Fold here, and then you're gonna fold here. Nice. Okay. And the reason I mean, I think I've made that mistake plenty of times in the past where I decide to have a hand like ace is there in theory, probably mixing quite a bit of check in this 3-bet pot that I just want to stack in. Yeah, probably mixing it a bunch of check, but I think the value of checking goes down when there's like, high likelihood my opponent's not going to be bluffing me enough and sort of just value, taking me to value town. Here versus 18, this is slightly small. It's pretty close to the size. And then a hand like Jack 10 is totally indifferent. Okay, maybe call. Maybe call. I don't know if this is all that good versus this player type. Probably missing a few bluffs, but okay, and then versus this size, this is pretty grim. So I'm going to call. 3 diamonds, like SPR is so low that like even if you have aces, right, you don't really care. Like overpairs are not caring about the front door flush coming in. So we're gonna check this back. Get a 9 of hearts river. Would have been nice if we drilled a 10, of course. And here, this is a mix. Gonna call. And in this hand, so yeah, I think a hand like ace king, a hand like I'm gonna lean towards fold. The reason being, shit, time down this hand. It's okay. The reason being, is sorry, I'm just thinking. Okay, here I'm gonna have to mix. We'll definitely look at that spot. That'll be probably the last spot that we look at. This is very close actually, because like this hand can definitely show down some, but in these positions it has much less showdown. Do I like check raise here? My hands fold. That was close. On the turn flop. So we've got a couple spots here. Center is pod, hero, position, ace 10 of clubs. And then looks like we're at a time bank pretty much on all these tables. So I'm happy to get off in a moment. And then we played a check versus cutoff, 4-bet pot. You're open position, Jack 10 of clubs, or Jack 10 of hearts. This hand is, yeah. I think having the 10 is not that appealing, and I basically anticipate that like bluffs wouldn't necessarily slow down at any point from like as like out of the position player might be feel more compelled to barrel some air hands rather than check, give up. This could be the wrong assumption. Thad Clemenza, that's a cool name. I'm going to bet this small. I don't know how wide this guy's flatting. This is not a great board for me, but I'm assuming that this is a fish. It's a fold. And how long have I been going at it? 15 minutes. I think this is a good time to sit out. Shoot. And then here he's donking half pot. I'm happy to call. We get the ace of spades. This card I think would probably freeze some amount of the action. Nice. And we'll check this back and beat queen 10 offsuit. So that is, guys, definitely a fish. I will put that down in a moment. Queen 10 offsuit. Small one versus button R5. And check here, or fold here, and sit on next big blind. This is a fold. This is close. We'll play one more hand here. And then going to fold. So doing a lot of 3-betting. I don't have any reads on this player. Might be aggressive, might not, might just be sample related. So, all right, that looks to be about it. So I will see you guys in a second with some analysis. All right, so as I said earlier, let's go ahead and look at some of these spots that I listed from the last 15 minutes I played on global. The first one I think was BVB, but I'm going to take a look at these hands that I played facing a hijack open first. The first one was this big blind versus hijack 3-bet pot, where I had aces, ace of clubs, ace of hearts. And the first thing that sort of catches me off guard is the frequency at which aces are betting is pretty, it's quite high. Like very little checking overall. Definitely good to simplify to a range bet. Here, I guess we do have some data. Big blind versus EP. And make sure I'm doing this correctly. Here's the pre-flop razor, and we will look at the options versus check. So the reason I want to look at check is basically because of what I was saying during the analysis, which was after facing check, I didn't anticipate a ton of bluffing from my opponent, and we can go and look at the range composition, which is a single Broadway flop. Yep, so let's see if that was a good or a bad assumption. So it looks like they do have quite a bit of air type hand, but we're not exactly sure. We're not exactly sure like of bet sizing. We can assume that it's small because typically like the sizes after check in these polar spots, our opponent is going to be betting like on the smaller side, basically like getting us just like putting a lot of pressure on like tons of hands that have a bit of equity, but are pretty much trash. So yeah, it looks like maybe our assumption was slightly incorrect. But the overall percentage of betting is much lower. So like a lot of the time we were going to face a check back. this is how I'm interpreting this information. Yeah, so the percentage of the time our opponent is betting is going to be less. So you have a hand like aces that wants to get money in, it's better to do it yourself. And versus bet, you know, we don't really even need to understand the response all that well. Like, they're going to be doing a lot of calling. Their range is going to be pretty strong. I'm sure like they have a hand like jacks, tens, nines, at least in my, experience, these hands are happy to really stick around. So anyway, this is just one spot, so let's go ahead and look at this flop. We'll look at the flop and turn with ace ten of clubs here, and we could look at the river as well. Check, and we face a small bet. So our opponent is doing a lot of mixing here, but they are likely simplifying to like a higher frequency small bet. So yeah, it looks like our hand is doing a bit of raising. I think it's hard to say what this hand class is going to start wanting to do versus a range bet. It might be best to raise this more often, actually, especially when you're playing at a position like you gain EV from folds, even if they're worse hands. Like it's just better because you get to realize easier. Like it's just improves your realization as out of position. So yeah, looking at the strategy for this board, it's likely they can use a higher frequency small bet if they were to simplify at that. But I would prefer to definitely raise this hand quite a bit. But in game we call, and we get the six of hearts turn. And we see some leading. I'm sure this is because we have quite a bit of offsuit two pair and just strong hands that our opponent is not going to have. And then, like, if we were to just think about this with respect to how often they would want to bet a turn like this, it'd be pretty low. So this kind of slowed me down in game, if I'm being honest. Like, before we go ahead and look at the strategy facing bet, my interpretation was that facing a barrel of pot-sized barrel on this turn, when my opponent is likely not even really considering whether or not I'm donking, it just seems like an extremely strong line. So we check, and we face a pot-sized bet. Looks like there's they have a B125 and a B75. We will look at the response to both. And it seems like versus either or, ace 10 is basically showing down, like calling and trying to win versus some give up on the river or make strong hand. Just like some of these worse ace x hands are having to bluff. And versus B125, it's the same idea. So we'll look at the B75 line. We call, and we get the three of hearts river. It's interesting because I would, I'd anticipate that you could lead this card sometimes as well. But it looks like that's not the case. Let me go ahead and look at the range construction. So, yeah, we're just pretty much fucked. and we definitely, well, you know what it really is like a lot of our backdoor flush draws, or like check raising the flop, or like having to like mainly check raise the flop. So that's like a node where a lot of them get filtered out, whereas my opponent here is betting quite a bit of them. So we check, and then we face a bet, and we fold. So, and what's interesting is we just call with ace ten of hearts. No, I don't know. I mean, I guess they are really just saying they have a full house. I would guess you'd be able to raise this hand all in, but what do I know? That is an interesting river decision with the ace high flush. And let's look at this last hand here. This is likely the most interesting one. Yeah, so 18 I remember being slightly small, but you could definitely play 18 bigs, like I'm sure it's fine. I just have always studied versus 19 or 20 big blinds. Here they 4-bet. We have Jack 10. It's totally indifferent. Versus 18, it's probably, we're going to be calling a bit more. Whether you want to fold or not is sort of contingent, not only on how much your opponent is bluffing, but also how they play post flop. So, deuce. And we face I think we face roughly half pot. This is like a 2-3 game. Jack 10 is going to call. Yeah, I don't think I considered this much in game, but I'm surprised there's no like all in versus this size. Like, I guess I'd need a hand that's like slightly stronger. King Jack seems to be like a pretty nice one, right? Because we are like, especially King Jack of like the offsuits, because you get called by Ace King and you're just in amazing shape versus that. But all right, so turn 3 of diamonds. My opponent checks, and we take a look at the imposition strategy. This is just really proof of how poorly I play at times. This is like seems like a really nice tool to use. Is like this 10% block, or like this 10% stab as imposition. I mean, yeah, like this is good for like a number of reasons. One, I think it really is going to like end up pacifying the out of position player. You put Ace King in like a pretty miserable spot, and you basically get to shut down your hand every time for free on the river, barring your opponent doesn't like lead, which is also like essentially face up. So I did not really consider this as one of the options that I had, but seems like a really, really strong strategy, especially versus most opponents who sort of are pacified facing these smaller bets. But as played, I check back, which is not great. And before we look at the river, I just want to say my decision to fold was solely based off of like my read that turn check would not, like, checking would not filter my opponent as much as it would in theory. So, like, meaning, I don't think they're just putting air into the turn check. I think that they're happy to check a bunch on the turn at that SPR. This is just what my gut is saying, pretty much. So in a situation where they are putting plenty of strong hands into the checking range, when we face a river all in, it certainly doesn't feel that great. And yeah, so like, it seems like, okay, Jack 10 is totally indifferent anyway. I guess my combo is losing. This is likely due to like blocking a hand like ace 10 of ace 10 of hearts that might bluff sometimes, right? Okay, bluffing very, very little, but yeah. Yeah, pretty interesting spot. I didn't know that turn this 10% size was so, like, this is like such an interesting strategy to me that I didn't consider in game. So, you know, always room to improve and add, you know, tools to your repertoire or whatever your strategy. So yeah, I really like this small B10 size as a position. You'll probably see me using this, you know, at some point, like maybe overdoing it. That's usually what happens, is like I'll learn some new like strategy and just take any opportunity I can to use it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the GTOW analysis. I will probably upload again tomorrow or tonight, so I will see you then. Thanks.